Hey everybody, this is Tracy here with another edition of A View from Tracy's Point. And as you guys can see, we have been very busy over here trying to get these transcripts read and out to you all. And the reason we're so behind, if you're new to the channel or new to following this case, it is because the judge is not allowing the court reporters to release the transcripts on a daily basis as they normally would. Instead, they have to give her the transcripts, let her read through them, and do some redactions. Now, I did 2 videos already catching up on Faith Rogers' testimony, and I don't recall there being any redactions in yesterday, well, not yesterday, but September 1st testimony. So what I'm going to cover today is September 2nd. But in this transcript, there is a lot of redactions. And so there was some conversation that was going on that the judge did not want released to the public. And so one of the things about Faith's testimony is that it was going around on social media that Attorney Canick wanted to bring in one of Faith Rogers' ex-boyfriends who was going to testify that she was actually diagnosed with HSV-2. You guys know what that is, and you know we have to mask words over here on YouTube. But anyway, that she was diagnosed back in 2013, and I'm guessing that the judge said that he could not come and testify, and it doesn't appear that that information was brought into evidence, at least none of the transcript that I read for the completion of Faith Rogers' testimony and the cross-examination. Nowhere did it mention this that she allegedly contracted the disease in 2013. Now, I did not get the transcripts for the first part of Faith's testimony because I had already done a video and pretty much talked about everything that she had talked about on that first day. So maybe this 2013 allegation was in the first part of her testimony in the transcript that I did not purchase. And then people have asked me about helping pay for the transcripts. So if you want to help pay for the transcripts, that can be done via PayPal, and you can look in my description, but it's paypal.me/A View from Tracy's Point, and that link is in the description of every video that I put out. I don't ask people to donate to the channel, but people have been asking, can they help pay for the transcripts to make sure that we're getting all the information out. And if you want to be a part of that, then you can do that through PayPal. I don't recommend it for super chats because YouTube takes 30% of the super chat donations, and then if you are giving through Google Pay or Apple Pay, then there's another like 15 to 20% that I believe it's 10 to 15, I'm sorry, percent that's also taking out. So when you're donating the super chats to your favorite YouTubers, they are only getting anywhere from 70, maybe 55 to 70% of those donations. And so that's why you'll never see me talking about, donate, give me super chats or that type of thing. So let's go ahead and get into what is going on September 2nd. It didn't seem like there was a lot of testimony from alleged victims. It was more technical stuff, I believe, but we'll go ahead and get started here. And so it was in open court and the jury wasn't present. The clerk, all rise. Donnelly, everybody can have a seat. All right. Good morning, everyone. Hope everybody survived. How many witnesses do we have for today? And then Miss Geddes said, we have 4 witnesses. Well, we have 3 plus witnesses. 1 witness is en route. Her plane was diverted last night, but we are optimistic that she'll land and we'll get her. Donnelly. Okay, it has been an unusual 24 hours, so we'll see what we can get done today. And I assume you gave counsel notice? Geddes, yes. Donnelly, great. Anything from either side before we get the witness and the jury? Canick, no, Your Honor. Just thank you for Your Honor's patience. Donnelly, that is fine. Do not worry about it. Let's get the witness and then we will get the jurors. Then there's a discussion that was held off the record. Witness enters the courtroom. The clerk, all rise. Jury enters the courtroom. You may be seated. Donnelly, all right, jurors, good morning. Glad to see you all are safe and dry. It has been an eventful 24 hours, but we are ready to proceed. I appreciate your patience. Are you ready to call your next witness? And then Geddes, yes, Your Honor. The government call is Young Fai Wu. Okay, clerk, please raise your right hand, and then they swear in the witness. The witness says that they understand, that they promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. The clerk says, thank you. You may be seated. Donnelly, and you can take your mask off. All right, good morning. Witness, good morning. Donnelly, just a couple of things. I want to make sure the microphone is working. Just give it a tap. Witness, hello. Do you hear me? Donnelly, well, maybe you have to turn it on. Witness, hello. Do you hear me? That is good. That is good. You might want to pull it a little bit closer to you. Great. So our court reporter records everything that everybody says. She takes it down. So it is really important that you speak slowly so it does not make her job too hard. And it is also important that we not speak over one another for the same. If there is a question that you want to have repeated or clarified, tell me and I will direct the lawyers to rephrase it. And just do your best to answer only the question you are being asked, okay? The witness, sure. Donnelly, all right, go ahead. So Geddes, Your Honor, I am going to begin by reading into the record a stipulation entered by the parties. Okay, the stipulation reads, it is hereby stipulated and agreed by and between the undersigned parties that on July 15th of 2021, pursuant to a court-authorized search warrant, Detective Dana Galante with the New York City Police Department obtained a buccal swab from the defendant, Robert Kelly, the defendants, and then in parentheses, the defendant's buccal BUCCAL swab. The defendant's buccal swab was then provided to the Illinois State Police, ISP, the Forensic Science Center, FSC, and vouchered as Lab Item 2 and Lab Sub-Item 2A within ISP FSC case number DFS 19-007090. This stipulation is admissible in evidence at this trial, and it is signed by all parties, and I am going to mark that as Government Exhibit 1005. Okay, so it sounds like they got this warrant from the Northern District of Illinois or either Cook County, because Geronda Pace is in both of those cases. So one of them is who requested that this swab be taken from Mr. Kelly. And you guys may or may not remember, but this actually happened when they were having a hearing. And I think it was one of those hearings involving Nicole Becker when I guess the marshals came in, in a dramatic effect with this warrant, to do this swab of Mr. Kelly, blah, blah, blah. So this is what they're entering into evidence. So Young Fu Wu, having been first duly sworn, was examined and testified as follows. And then Geddes, and for those of you who are new to me reading these transcripts, When a question is being asked, it is the prosecutor that's asking the question. When the answer comes in, it is the witness. If the witness in turn asks a question to the prosecutor or to the judge, then I'll let you know. And so basically, as I'm reading this, I'm not going to continue to say, Getty said this, the witness said this. I'm just going to keep running through this like a dialogue, and just know that if there is a question, it's Getty's. If it's a statement, it is the Wu person. And if there's a question from Wu, then I'll let you know that he or she has asked the question. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to start with Geddes. Where do you work? Illinois State Police Forensic Science Center in Chicago. I'm assuming that this person is Asian. I know I'm stereotyping. Okay. What is your title at the Forensic Science Center in Chicago? Forensic scientist. How long have you worked as a forensic scientist at the Forensic Science Center of Chicago? 6.5 years. Okay, wait, I'm sounding like Shahadi now. Okay, I might have to just read through this. So 6.5 years. During the first 1.5 years there's training program that's in Springfield, Illinois, in the training lab. That's 1.5 years. Then the next 5 years is at the Forensic Science Center in Chicago. And do you work within a specific unit at the Forensic Science Center of Chicago? Yes, it's called Biochemistry Section. And what is the Biochemistry Section responsible for? Responsible for forensic biology and forensic DNA testing. So it's responsible for forensic biology and DNA testing. Yes. What are your duties and responsibilities at the Forensic Science Center in the Biochemistry Unit? Conducting forensic biology analysis, conducting forensic DNA analysis. Donnelly, I am just going to ask you, I just want to make sure you are speaking into the microphone. Okay, the chair does not move. Sorry about that, but just try to bring the microphone a little bit closer. So, conducting forensic biology analysis, conducting forensic DNA analysis, write a report, conducting peer review, testimony in court. All right. So at the Forensic Science Center, you conduct forensic biology testing. Is that correct? Yes. As well as forensic DNA testing. Correct. And you mentioned that you also do peer review. Right. What do you mean by peer review? That's to review my colleagues' cases. So are you referring to your colleagues' cases involving forensic biology and forensic DNA testing? Right. They write reports and then I conduct peer review. You review before it was mailed. All right. So you testified that you review the forensic reports drafted by your colleagues. Is that correct? Correct. Is the Forensic Science Center of Chicago an accredited lab? Yes. Who is it accredited by? It's called ANSI, ANAB, American National Standard Institute, National Accreditation Board, based on ISO 17025 standards. And is that also known as ANSI or ANSI? Yes. And then you said it was the National ANAB, the National Accreditation Board? Yes. Can you tell the jury about your educational background? I received my bachelor's degree in medicine in China, the first degree in medicine. Medicine is the first degree, not like in United States. We are second degree after. The degree after our college graduation in China is the first degree after your high school. That's in medicine. In the year 1994, from Xi'an Jiaotong University in China. Xi'an is spelled Xian. Jiaotong is spelled Jiaotong. That university in Xi'an, China. So you received your bachelor's in medicine, is that correct? Yes, that's in the year 1994. Then I received my bachelor's degree in forensic medicine and from same university in the year 1997. And I received my bachelor's degree in forensic medicine from same university in the year 2004. Donnelly, what is the name of the university where you got those degrees? I can't stand Judge Donnelly. She is just, oh my gosh, she is acting like an old lady. She is a trip. So anyway, the poor man said, or the poor woman, I don't even know if it's a man or a woman, said Xi'an Jiantong University in Xi'an, China. Donnelly, I see, okay. Geddes. And the final degree that you received from that university, what was that again? It's doctorate degree in forensic medicine. A doctorate degree? Yes. In forensic medicine? Yes, that's PhD. And after you received your PhD in forensic medicine, what type of employment did you pursue? I had 10 years of cancer research experience at National University of Singapore and the University of Chicago and the University and also Northwestern University in Chicago also. All right, so you conducted cancer research at 2 universities in Illinois. Is that correct? 3, 2 universities in Illinois and 1 in Singapore, totaling 10 years. You testified earlier about a 1.5-year training program that you participated in at the Forensic Science Center. Oh, it's not a Forensic Science Center. It's in a training lab in Springfield. And can you describe what is involved in that training program? There's training on forensic biology testing and forensic DNA testing. And that was a 1.5-year long program. Yes. And do you also receive continuing education through the Forensic Science Center? Yes. What type of continuing education do you receive? That's certificate, conference, certificate, seminar, and literature review totaling 8 hours a year. So you receive 8 hours of continuing education each year. Yes. As a forensic scientist, have you had occasion to perform DNA testing on items submitted to the Forensic Science Center? Yes. Approximately how many times have you conducted such tests? Thousands of times. Thousands of times? Yes. And have you previously testified as an expert in court regarding DNA testing and the interpretation of that testing? Yes. How many times have you testified in court? Twice. And where was that? In Illinois. In Illinois? Your Honor, pursuant to Federal Rule of Evidence 702, I would like to offer Mr. Rue as an expert in the field of forensic biology and DNA analysis. Canick, no objection. Donnelly, okay, ladies and gentlemen, I will give you a little bit of I think I told you this before, but whenever somebody testifies as an expert in an area that most of us don't have expertise in, they are permitted to testify as to certain things. I will give you a detailed instruction about that in my final charge. Go ahead. Geddes, thank you. Oops. Can you briefly explain to the jury what DNA is? DNA is the genetic blueprint of life passed down from generation to generation. It encodes various of genes which are responsible for various types of factions of life. So you described it as the genetic blueprint of life that is passed on from generation to generation. Yes. Now, is every person's DNA unique? Yes, except identical siblings. So aside from identical twins, right, Each person has a different DNA. Each person has a unique DNA sequence. Where do you find DNA in a person's body? All types of cells except mature red blood cells. So cells throughout your body, yes, contain DNA. Except the mature red blood cells. All right. So, with the exception of mature red blood cells, that is right. Right. And is a person's DNA the same throughout each of those cells where DNA is found? Yes, except some mutation. Mutation happening in some cancer cases, you can have some mutation. But aside from mutations caused by cancer, one's DNA is the same throughout their body. Right. And does DNA remain in the same throughout one's life? Yes. Are you familiar with the term DNA profile? Yes. What is a DNA profile? DNA profile is a combination of different alleles and different loci, and we find for each specific person and each specific locus, there are two alleles. And child, he's saying Alleles. I probably ain't pronouncing it right. One from father and one from mother. If those two okay, hold on. I'm going to look this up and see how to pronounce this word. Okay, I think it's allele. And then with an S, alleles. Okay. If those two alleles are same, they're called homozygous. Oh God, HOMOZYGOUS, homozygous. Okay, in that locus. If they are different, then they are called heterozygous. Let me back up just for a moment. For the most part, is the DNA in one person the same as DNA in other people? Big majority of DNA sequence among different people are the same. Only small portion of DNA among different people are different. And so for the most part, your DNA is the same among everyone in the room? Right. But are those certain portions of an individual's DNA that varies from person to person? Correct. Are you familiar with the term short tandem repeat, or STR? Yes, that's the marker we use for forensic identification. And our short tandem repeat, or STRs, does that vary from person to person? Yes, it is called polymorphic. In terms of forensics, it's called polymorphic. That means different people might have different alleles at those loci. That's called polymorphic. And we use that polymorphism for forensic identification. And you use the term loci or locus. What do you mean by that? That's the specific DNA areas. They are the polymorphic areas. Those DNA sequence are different from people to people. Okay, so is the loci or locus just another word for plural and singular? Yeah. Is it just another word for location or area? Yes, location or area. Yes. And you also talked about the term allele. Yes. What is an allele? Allele in forensics is called its DNA type. So I have a specific locus for this person. That's two. There are two alleles, one from mother and one from father. All right. And can you explain what is included in a DNA profile? My current kit has 24 loci. One is called amylogen. Oh Lord, Jesus, amylogenin. That's a sex marker. The other 23 are called STR loci. All right. Okay. So within a DNA profile, are you essentially looking at 24 different markers? Yes. And are 23 of those markers called the STR loci? Right. And then is there an additional marker? We'll call it the 24th marker that comes from amylogenin. Is that correct? Yes. And what is the amylogenin marker? Amylogenin marker is a sex chromosome human cells contain. Each human cell contains 23 pairs of DNA chromosomes. The 23rd pair is called sex chromosome. One is called Y chromosome. Another one is called S chromosome. S chromosome is from mother. For male person, the Y chromosome is from father. X is from mother. For a female person, one X is from father and the other X is from mother. All right. The amylogens for a male contributor, there are two peaks, one from Y and one from X. For a female contributor, there's only one peak. That's called X. Now, are you able to determine one's sex or from a DNA profile? Yes. What is used to determine sex from a DNA profile? An amylogenin at a locus. If there are two peaks, one Y peak, one X peak detected, I call that a male contributor. If there's only an X peak detected, that's called female contributor. All right. So if there's a Y peak present, that indicates a male. Yes. There's actually a STR locus. Out of those 23 STR loci, there's a locus called DYS391. There is a Y chromosome from only male contributor can be detected allele at that locus. For female DNA, there's no allele can be detected. This is specific for Y chromosome. All right. So are you saying that in addition to the amylogenin marker, there is also another way to identify the sex of a particular DNA profile by looking at one of those 23 STR loci? Yes, and I think you indicated a particular name for that locus, DYS391 locus. All right. And I don't want you to tell me them, what are their names for each of the different 23 loci? Yes. And DYS391 is just one of those names, correct? Yes, yes. And that just indicates a particular location, correct? Yes, yes. Now, when case evidence is received in your lab at the Forensic Science Center, what is initially done with it? The evidence is assigned a case number for that case, and then each case may have a different number of items. Then we will assign a different item number for a different exhibit. So there is a case number assigned, and then within that case number, each piece of potential evidence could be assigned an item number. Yes. Are you familiar? So once a case number and an item number for each piece of evidence has been assigned, what happens? Then the case will be assigned to an analyst. And once it's assigned to an analyst, typically what happens? The analyst would do the biochemistry section. The analyst would do biology, forensic biology testing, and then forensic DNA testing. All right. And when forensics biology testing is done, is that a way to identify whether any biological fluids are found on a particular type of evidence? Yes. And among the biological fluids that might be found, is semen one of those? Yes. And then you also mentioned that after the forensic biology testing is done, it then goes to forensic DNA testing, right? Right. And that's at the lab, the type of testing that you do, correct? Yes. Are you familiar with the term DNA standard? Yes. What is a DNA standard? That's a new standard from a person of interest. We know the source of that DNA is called a standard. Okay. So as opposed to a piece of evidence that is submitted to the lab for DNA analysis where you don't know the origin, and then he cut her off and said, yes, the items from the crime scene, we don't know what's the source of the DNA. But from the standard, we know who is the contributor. Who is that from? All right, so it's fair to say that it's known who is the provider of that particular sample. Right. And when a DNA standard is submitted to the Forensic Science Center, what happens? Same as the question of samples. They assign an exhibit, case number, and item number. And our DNA is a DNA standard typically assigned to the same case number associated with the evidence in question. In most cases, that's the case. And then it is assigned a different item number. Right. Your Honor, my approach, yes. I'm showing the witness what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 241. Can you take a look at 241 and identify the case number assigned to 241? It's DFS 19-002. No, 007090. Okay, now that was a big damn difference in numbers that he read there. Okay, so, and are you able, from looking at Government Exhibit 241, to identify the item number assigned to this piece of evidence? Yes, that's item 1. And were you able to determine that by looking at this tag that has been affixed to Government Exhibit 241? Yes. And is that a tag affixed by your lab? Yes, that's my colleague, forensic scientist Veronica Jackson, did it. Okay, did you say Veronica Jackson? Yes, Veronica Jackson. Okay, just make sure that you're speaking in the microphone. Okay, thanks. Child, y'all know that was Donnelly. Can't hear nothing. And were you asked to analyze evidence within case number 19-007090? Yes. What evidence were you asked to analyze? 2 cuttings from shirt. And I'm showing the Government Exhibit 241, and there appears to be a cutting here. Were the cuttings that you were given consistent with these cuts here? No, I don't remember that. They originally, forensic scientist Veronica Jackson made the cuttings and put them into 2 tubes. So I then sealed and then put them in the evidence, both. I took custody from there, so I didn't make that cutting, so I cannot recognize that cutting. Okay, but the cuttings that you received, as it just consistent with the cuts here? Right. And when I say here, I'm referring to Government Exhibit 241. Right. And the cuttings that you received, were those assigned sub-item numbers? Yes, they are 1A and 1B. And again, you testified that you received those cuttings from your colleague, Veronica Jackson. She made cuttings, sealed, put them in 2 different tubes and sealed them in the envelope and then put them in evidence, both. Then I took custody from both. So they are placed into evidence and you took over from there. Yes. Once you received those 2 cuttings, which you identified as sub-item number 1A and 1B, within that same case number associated with Government Exhibit 241, what did you do first? I did extraction called differential extraction. And when you say differential extraction, what do you mean by that? That method is to separate sperm cells from the epithelial cells in a stain. EPITHELIAL. Okay. Now, you've just referenced sperm cells and epithelial cells. Are epithelial cells just another name for skin cells? Skin cells is one type of epithelial cells. The epithelial cells also include, like oral, the swab of the cells from the oral surface, and it also from the rectal surface and the vaginal areas, oral areas, and also the rectal areas. Those are epithelial cells. Donnelly, can I just make sure I understand? You said from the vaginal area? Yes, the rectal area. and also oral. The oral area. They are all epithelial cells. I see. Go ahead. They are not skin cells, but they are epithelial cells. And then also, skin cells is another form of epithelial cells. Right. And so you testified that you performed differential extraction as a means to separate out the sperm cells from those epithelial cells. Is that correct? Correct. And did you do that on sub-item 1A and 1B? Yes. Today, I want to focus on just the sperm cell fractions of 1A and 1B. Okay? Okay. Now, did you also conduct DNA testing on the non-sperm cell fractions, the epithelial cell fractions? Yes. Okay. So we're going to, and you also, in addition to that, you conducted DNA testing on the sperm cell fractions for 1A and 1B, correct? Correct. I'm sorry, I was speaking over you. Is that right? Correct. So again, referring to the sperm cell fraction of 1A, were you able to determine a DNA profile for the sperm cell fraction of 1A? Yes. And were you also able to determine a DNA profile for the sperm cell fraction of 1B? Yes. Now, you mentioned earlier that a complete DNA profile under your current system includes 24 different loci, the 23 STR markers, as well as the 1 hemoglobin marker. Is that correct? Yes. How many loci were present in the DNA profile that you identified for the sperm cell fraction of 1A? 24. All 24? Yes, but 2 of them are not complete. That means potentially some out of those 2 loci, the sister, part of the sister, Lord, I don't forget how to pronounce the word, y'all. Oh my God, this is too much. The allele may be missing. It's called incomplete partial. Were you able to identify alleles at each of the 24 markers? Yes. But I think you were saying that at 2 of those markers, you were only able to identify a partial result. So at least 1 allele. Yes, 1 allele each. The other sister allele may be missing, so that's why we call it partial result. And with respect to the sperm cell fraction of 1B, how many loci were present in the DNA profile that you identified for that one? 24. And was that DNA profile a complete profile, including both alleles at each of the 24 markers? Correct. That's correct. That's complete. Now, did there come a time that your lab received additional evidence regarding that particular case, DFS 007090? Yes. What did you receive? And then BUCCAL, a buccal swab from Robert Kelly. And when you say buccal swab, what is that? It's from the mouth cavity, a swab from the mouth cavity of Robert Kelly. And what was the condition of the buccal swab when your lab received it? It was sealed. It was sealed? Yes. And the buccal swab associated with Robert Kelly, was that vouchered as lab item number 2 within that same case, DFS 007090? Correct. And was DNA testing done on the buccal swab? Yes. And just to be clear, is the buccal swab that you received for Robert Kelly also known as a standard, a DNA standard? Yes. And is the reason because you know who provided that DNA sample? Correct. Were you able to determine a DNA profile for the DNA standard for Robert Kelly or that buccal swab? Yes. And were you able to identify a complete profile consisting of alleles at all 24 markers? Yes, it's complete. And just to be clear, was the analysis of the buccal swab done at a different time than when the analysis was done by lab items 1A and 1B, the cuttings from within the government exhibit 241? Okay, and for those of you who don't know what this exhibit is, it is a shirt that Geronda Pace, who was the first person to testify in the case, who claimed that at some point her and Kelly got into something, and that he spit in her, I think she said he spit in her face, or he came on her, spit on her, something, child. And then she wiped her face, wiped off his fluids with this Aristotle blue polo shirt that she had. And so she's held on to this polo shirt allegedly since 2009. And so this is what they are testing because it was entered in evidence in this case. So he says, right, they are almost 2.5 years apart. Okay. Did you have an opportunity to compare the DNA profile that you generated for the buccal swab of Robert Kelly to the DNA profile that you generated for the sperm cell fractions within sub-item 1A and 1B? Yes. And I want to first direct your attention to the DNA profile in 1A. What did you determine when you compared just the DNA profile of Robert Kelly to the DNA profile which you previously testified was slightly incomplete with respect to 1A? Mr. Kelly's DNA profile cannot be excluded from the DNA profile identified in the sperm fraction of item 1B, 1A, of 1A, correct? Of 1A, correct? Yes. Similarly, did you compare the DNA profile of Robert Kelly to the DNA profile generated for lab item 1B, which you previously testified was a complete DNA profile? Yes. What did you observe when you compared those two DNA profiles? My conclusion is Mr. Kelly's DNA profile cannot be excluded or is included in that DNA profile and in sperm fraction of item 1B. Thank you for clarifying that. I was just referring to the sperm cell fraction of 1B. Yes. When you say that it cannot be withdrawn, when you look at the DNA profile for those 24 markers on the known standard for Robert Kelly and the 24 markers that you identified for the sperm cell fraction of 1B, are they the same? Yes, exactly the same. Are you familiar with random match probability? Yes, that's what I calculated for this case. What is random match probability? Random match probability means how common or how difficult it is to have a person happen to share the same DNA profile as 1B and identified in the crime scene items. Just to be clear, you testified earlier that with the exception of DNA, with the exception of identical twins, every person's DNA is different, correct? Yes. But now we're talking about DNA. We're talking about a DNA profile. Is that correct? Yes. Did your lab do any statistical calculations to determine how rare the DNA profile of the DNA profile found in the buccal swab of Robert Kelly and the same DNA profile found in the sperm cell fraction of sub-item 1B was? I didn't calculate the statistics for the profile from Kelly. I calculated the statistics for the question sample, the sperm fraction from the file from sperm fraction of 1A and 1B. Okay, we didn't calculate for standard. I understand. With respect to the statistical calculation regarding the sperm cell fraction of 1A, what did you determine about the frequency with which that DNA profile, the one found in 1A, the sperm cell fraction of 1A, is found? As I stated earlier, the first step when I found the questionable, the DNA profile from sperm fraction of 1A, and then obtained the DNA profile from standard for Kelly, then I compared these two profiles and see if the DNA profile from Kelly cannot be excluded or is included in that DNA profile, and the sperm fraction of item 1A, then I cannot be excluded or is included. Then I calculate the random match probability based on Federal Bureau of Investigation database. The result I calculated is 1 in 86 nonillion. Child, I didn't even know numbers went up this high. So what is a nonillion in random population? And then Donnelly had the same question that I had, a nonillion. And then he said, yes, nonillion is followed by 30 zeros. Then Geddes, I'm showing the witness only what is marked for identification as Government's Exhibit 960. Do you see what is shown as Government's Exhibit 960 on your screen? Yes. On 960, is that an accurate description of the term 1 nonillion, 1 billion, and 1 decillion? Oh, Jesus, I've been reading too much. This is giving me a headache. Okay. 1 billion is followed by 9 zeros. That is correct. 1 nonillion is followed by 30 zeros. Correct. And then 1 decillion is followed by 33 zeros. The government offers 960. Any objection? No. That would be in evidence. Okay, may I publish, please? Yes. You were testifying about the random match probability associated with the sperm cell fraction of the DNA profile in 1A. Is that correct? Correct. You used the term nonillion or nonillion. Yes, 68 nonillion. 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 Where my finger is pointing, 1 nonillion, is that a numerical representation of what a nonillion was? Yeah, okay. Yes, followed by 30 zeros. Donnelly, 68. It would be 68 followed by 30 zeros, right? Yes. Okay. Did you also determine the random match probability associated with the DNA profile for the sperm cell fraction of the DNA for the sperm cell fraction of the item 1B? Now this is Donnelly, once again interjecting, asking questions, which is supposed to be the prosecutor's job and the defense's job. So the witness replied, yes, I compared the filed and sperm fraction of 1B with the DNA profile from Kelly. I found followed Mr. Kelly's DNA profile cannot be excluded or included. Then I covered the statistics for the sperm DNA filed and identified the item 1B. And then the result is 1 in 11 decillion. 11 decillion? Yes. So I'm clear. When you say it can't be excluded, the other is included. Okay, what are you comparing? I compared the DNA profile from the sperm fraction of 1A and 1B and the DNA profile from Kelly. And when you're talking about the probability, what probability is it? That means how rare or how often it is to find random person happen to share the same DNA profile. Are you saying that Mr. Kelly's profile was the same as either of those two items, or that the likelihood that it was? You tell me. That statistics shows me that for the DNA profiles identified, the sperm fractions of 1A and 1B, how common it is in the population, how common it is. And then Donnelly cuts him off and says, to find the same, and then he replies, the same DNA profile. So the same DNA profile is in both of those samples. Yes, no. I identifying the sperm fraction of item 1A. There are two not complete. They are not complete. But the one identified in the sperm fraction of 1A and 1B is complete. That's the one that is how many decillion? 11 decillion. Go ahead. So then Getty's picks back up. Thank you, Judge. Again, just to be clear, with respect to the sperm cell fraction of 1B, the alleles at those 24 markers for the sperm cell fraction of 1B were the same found in the alleles that those 24 markers for the DNA profile generated for Kelly. Is that correct? Yes, they match each other. And then you calculated the random match probability, which was to determine how rare that particular profile could be found given that it was the same 24 marker, the alleles of the same 24 markers in both. Is that correct? Correct. Yes, they match each other. And then you calculated the random match probability, which was to determine how rare that particular profile could be found given that it was the same 24 marker, the alleles of the same 24 markers in both. Is that correct? Correct. So you testified with respect to the sperm cell fraction of 1B that the chance that the DNA profile would occur in 1 in 11 decillion individuals. Is that correct? Yes. To put that in perspective, how many people, what is the population of the earth? According to United Nations last test data, it is about 7.9 billion. 7 billion? 7.9 billion. To be clear, when you say 7.9 billion, that's 7.9 followed by 9 zeros. Is that correct? Yes, 7.9 followed by 8 zeros. So 7, 9, and then 8 zeros. Yes. Fair to say that 1, can you compare the 7.2 billion with the 11 decillion? That is over 1 million billion times of current world population. Okay, one moment. One final question. Earlier, you testified that the DNA profile generated for the sperm cell fraction of 1A and the same one, the DNA profile generated for the sperm cell fraction of 1B, could not be excluded from the DNA profile generated from Kelly. Is that correct? The other way around. Can you say it one more time? The DNA profile for Kelly's cannot be excluded or is included in the DNA profile I did find in the sperm fraction of item 1A and item 1B. Is another way of saying cannot be excluded, that is included? Yes. Then finally, you were talking about the random match probability with respect to the DNA profile found within the sperm cell fraction of 1B. I think you said that it was 1 in 11 decillion. Is that correct? Yes. Do you mean there would be one person in 11 decillion where that DNA profile will occur? The statistics calculation we expect to find one who happens to share that same DNA profile, 1 in 11 decillion. So one person in 11 decillion. We expect to see that. I understand. That's just based on statistics. Nothing further. Cross-examination, yes, Your Honor. Now, child, I don't know why Kenneth want to cross-examine this man, because we have no clue what this man is talking about. Because if there's only 7.9 billion people in the world, I guess he's saying that Kelly's ancestors 11 generations from now could possibly match that DNA. Is that what he's saying? Or that one of his relatives or ancestors from generations ago could have had that same DNA in order for more than one person to test for that DNA, but not in the same lifetime with two people have the same DNA. Like, I am so confused, and I know y'all confused too. Like, oh my God. But anyway, Kanik is going to cross-examine this man. I don't know why. So, Kanik, good morning. Good morning. The shirt that you were asked to do the analysis for, you don't know where that shirt came from, am I correct? No. That shirt, you don't know if someone jumped across someone's fence and went into their home and took the shirt. I don't know the story. Overruled. Now, ain't nobody said objection, but Donnelly is overruling. Okay, y'all got that? So you don't know, do you, whether or not you were asked to do a buccal swab analysis comparison for Geronda Pace? No. No one asked you to do. Nobody asked me that standard for Geronda Johnson. Thank you. Any redirect? No, Your Honor. Next witness. So here come Cruz Melendez. The government calls Chris Wilson to the stand. Witness takes the stand. He's sworn in. Donnelly asks him, or the deputy asks him to state his name. And he says, Christopher M. Wilson. And then the deputy, you may be seated. Then Donnelly, a couple of things. And then she goes through her spiel about the court reporter. Please speak into the microphone, which ain't going to make no difference because she's not going to hear you anyway. That if you need something repeated, ask her. Don't ask the lawyer. Don't speak over the lawyers, blah, blah, blah. So then she says, go ahead. And so Christopher Wilson, having been first duly sworn, was examined and testified as follows. And then Cruz Melendez, good afternoon. Are you employed? Yes. How are you employed? I am a special agent and computer forensic agent for the United States Department of Homeland Security Investigations. What is your title there? Special Agent and Bureau Forensics Agent. How long have you been a computer forensics agent? I've been a computer forensic agent for about 2 years. Can you explain your duties and responsibilities as a computer forensics agent? Sure. We support over 500 special agents in our office, and any evidence that's electronic evidence that they seize, they bring it to us for imaging and images, make an exact copy of the evidence for analysis. Did you conduct forensic examinations of devices obtained pursuant to court-authorized search warrants in connection with this case? Yes. Your Honor, may I approach? Yes. I'm showing the witness what is marked for identification as Government's Exhibit 493. Can you review Government's Exhibit 493 and tell me if you recognize it? I do. What is it? It's an iPhone that I imaged for this case. The government moves to admit Government's Exhibit 493. Kanik, may I see it? Cruz Melendez, Your Honor, while they are reviewing this, I can have the witness look at 2 other pieces of evidence. Sure. I'm showing the witness Government's Exhibit 346 and 486. If you can take a moment to review Government's Exhibit 346 and 486, okay. With respect to Government's Exhibit 486, do you recognize it? I do. What is it? It's a laptop that I forensically imaged for this case. And with respect to Government's Exhibit 346, do you recognize it? I do. What is it? An iPhone that I forensically imaged for this case. Donnelly, I take it you're offering all of those? Cruz Melendez, I am, Your Honor. Kanik, we have no objections to 493. Donnelly, do you have that back, Miss Cruz Melendez? Let's start with that. Remind me, what is that again? Government's Exhibit 493. May I publish, Your Honor? Yes. Okay. Government's Exhibit 493, is that an Apple iPhone? Yes, it is. Did you conduct a forensic examination of Government's Exhibit 493? I did. I'm now showing the witness only Government's Exhibit 481. Agent Wilson, When you conducted the forensics analysis of Government's Exhibit 493, did you create a forensic analysis report? I did. Is 481 a partial analysis report with respect to text messages in Government's Exhibit 493? Yes. Move to admit, Your Honor. Any objection? I believe this is actually in evidence, I'm being told. Okay. We consented to that already. Donnelly, it's in evidence. Cruz Melendez, may we publish, Your Honor? Yes. Is this an excerpt from the report that you generated? It is. As you testified a moment ago, there are text messages included in Government Exhibit 481, correct? Yes. Does that include text messages for the phone numbers 747-220-9363? Yes. As well as 312-972-7283? Yes. Directing your attention for a moment to this third bubble here, I'm going to read what is listed in this third bubble. If you could let me know what I've done when I'm done, if I've read that correctly. Okay. I'm not going to lie. I was happy to know that as well. I really was there, but I also kind of thrown back the way you reacted to my reaction. I don't care. I'm sorry, y'all know once I start scrolling, the thing always jump for some reason. So I don't care what is going on in your life. I need to be trusted by you 1,000,000,000% that when I say something, you don't even hesitate. You do it. You go with it. When you do that, I don't know just who you are to me. I know you are young, but that is no excuse to disobey me or not do what I tell you to do. You have some issues in the area of not doing what I tell you, all when you get in trouble. You shut down and be hard-headed. You cut me off when I'm talking now. You didn't used to do that. So I'm telling you, what you put into something is exactly what you're going to get out of it. Believe me, God knows I want the same things you want. But God also knows my heart that it's never going to happen until you grow up and start to show me you're going to do what you're supposed to do. Because I go through too much to have to deal with you, not give me the information that I told you over and over to give me. When you know you're young and dare say a lot of things you didn't know. So when you argue back at me, it shows me that you will rebel on me, and it shows me that you're not humble as you used to be as you're young. Therefore, you have to say yet, accept that, own it, and be glad that you have someone to make the decisions, and be thankful that he wants all those things with you. So make sure your motive is right before doing something like that. Make sure you want to do it because you're old enough, wise enough, and strong enough, not just because you want to be bonded with me. Because I want to groom you and be bonded with you 1,000,000% before that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. If you know you're going to do what you're supposed to do and get it together, you should have no problem being patient and waiting. That's all I'm going to say for now. Say for you now. Then the text goes on for a moment. Is that correct? Yes. The text message that I just read to you, is that dated 12/24/2017? Yes. Your Honor, I'm not sure if defense counsel had stated anything with respect to Government's Exhibit 346 and 486. The government moves to admit those into evidence. Canick, no objection. Donnelly, those are in evidence. Government Exhibit 346 and 486 was received in evidence. Okay, let's put a pin here. Now, who in the hell wrote a text message that long? Like, seriously. Who wrote a text message that long? Are we supposed to believe that R. Kelly wrote this text message? Did Robert write this long text message? I don't know anybody, man or woman, who writes a text message that long. If you got all of that to say, you're going to call the person and tell them to come in the room. Okay, he would have flew them in. He would have called them on the telephone before he typed all of that. Even if he was using voice to text. I don't think he would have written all that. But then again, I must say, there are a few people in the comments that be leaving long messages like that. So, I don't know, maybe he did. But somehow I just don't picture no man leaving no message that long. But anyway, we're moving on. We enter in exhibits. She wants to publish. Donnelly said, okay, go ahead and publish. So she says, I'm publishing Government's Exhibit 346. And then she says, Agent Wilson, did you perform a forensic analysis of Government's Exhibit 346? Yes. Now, showing just the witness Government's Exhibit 325 and 325A, do you recognize Government's Exhibit 325A and 325 as an excerpt of the forensic analysis report that you created with respect to your forensic analysis of Government's Exhibit 346? I do. Your Honor, the government moves to admit 325 and 325A. No objection. Those are in evidence. With respect to Government's Exhibit 325, if I could publish, Your Honor, here on the top it says note, correct? Yes. As part of your excerpt for the forensic analysis report, here on 325A, under the type it reads note, correct? Yes. Towards the left bottom portion underneath time, it states created and the date. There is 8/30/2018, correct? Yes. Then turning your attention again to Government's Exhibit 325. Again, it says creation time 8/30/2018, correct? Yes. You testified earlier that Government's Exhibit 325 and 325A were as a result of your forensic analysis of an iPhone, correct? Yes. Fair to say that this is from the notes portion of an iPhone, correct? Correct. Permission to publish, Your Honor, Government's Exhibit 486. Go ahead. May I approach, Your Honor? Yes, I've handed the witness several marked exhibits for identification, starting with Government's Exhibit 475, 475A, 476, 476A, 477, 477A, 478, 478A. Okay, and it goes on. Okay, no, it jumps around. 479, 479A, 480, 480A, 487, 487A, 488, 488A, and then the same for 489, 490, 491, 492. So prior to your testimony here today, did you have an opportunity to review those marked exhibits? I did. Can you take a moment and look through them and tell me if you recognize them? So then he comes back and he says, okay, generally speaking, are the exhibits that I just listed and handed to you forensic analysis reports and accompanying images based on your forensic analysis of Government's Exhibit 486? Yes. Your Honor, the government moves to admit the list of marked exhibits which I've just provided. Any objection? Can I see them? While defense counsel is reviewing those, is it fair to say the marked exhibits which I listed out are partial results of the forensic analysis that you conducted on Government's Exhibit 486? Yes. Then Canick says no objection. And then Donnelly, okay, those are in evidence and you can publish them. And then they list all of the exhibits again. And then she continues and says, starting with Government's Exhibit 476, this is a partial, an excerpt of the forensic analysis report that you created, correct? Yes. Directing your attention to page 4, Your Honor, can we have this for the jury only actually? Yes. Okay, do you see here where it says, I don't think the juror screens are on? Sorry. Okay, do you see underneath file name where it says created date time 12/12/2015? Do you see that there? Yes. Lower down where it says lens model iPhone 6 plus back camera. Yes. You see that there? Yes. Before continuing speaking with this, are you familiar with the manners in which an iPhone can back up information that's on the iPhone itself? I am. What methods can one use to back up an iPhone? You could back it up to the iCloud or to a specific mechanic. I'm going to object. Donnelly, he's just testifying generally about how to back things up. I think it is in evidence, isn't it? Cruz Melendez, this document, yes. Mechanic, it's in evidence, but it's not qualified. Donnelly, overruled. Okay. What are the methods in which one might back up information that is on an iPhone? Well, you could back it up to the cloud or to a specific device like a computer or laptop. Based on your review of Government's Exhibit 476, here we see the created date time of 12/12/2015 and also lens model iPhone 6 Plus back camera. Is that consistent with the image which is listed Government's Exhibit 476 having been taken by iPhone and then backed up to Government's Exhibit 486? Yes. Turning our attention to Government's 476A, is this the image that is reflected in the partial forensic analysis report? Yes. Directing your attention to Government's Exhibit 475, similar question. Okay, we're going to skim through this because she's just repeating herself. What was on these images? Can we get to that part? So we're going to scroll down here looking for what exactly is all this crap that she's entering into evidence, because we got all these dates and we got exhibits, but we don't know what's in them. And I find it interesting that whatever this is, I'm sure Ariel Clary has something to do with it, because all these dates that they're giving is within the time, like right after he met her through 2018. And so she asked him the same questions about each one of these numbers, about them being on the iPhone, and it just goes on and on and on and on for pages. And so I guess she's certifying each and every one of these documents. So we're just going to scroll down until we can actually find out what was on there. Let's see. And I know the jury probably was falling asleep at this point, like, girl, are you for real? I mean, I'm literally going through pages and pages of this document, and it is the same thing, but different dates. Well, actually, that 12/12/2015 date keeps coming up. So I guess the image was taken in October, but then it was backed up on 12/12. This got Ariel Clary name written all over it, okay? Her daddy probably called her and was like, steal that phone, girl, and back them pictures up so we can see them and we have them as evidence. Okay, we're up to 490A. Oh, Donnelly asked the question, did you place those redaction boxes on it? So I guess whatever 490A, they redacted a portion of it. The witness said, I did not. Donnelly said, okay. Okay, let's see. Then they keep going. 491. It seems like all these pictures were taken like October 3rd, 4th, 5th. And then they seem to have been backed up on December 12th, 2015. So to me, that sounds like somebody got into his phone. Okay, let's see. They talk about coordinates. Donnelly, can I see the parties at the side for just 1 second? We don't need the court reporter. So then there was a sidebar conference held off the record out of the hearing of the jury. Melendez, Your Honor, for the sake of clarity, counsel has conferred and defense counsel stipulates that the redaction boxes that appear on the images from the forensic analysis, the images that I've been going through with respect to Government's Exhibit 486, were not on the images at the time that the device was analyzed by Agent Wilson. Donnelly, okay. And then Melendez, and that they were placed on the government for purposes of in-court review. Donnelly, I think I told you jurors when you were selected that stipulations are just agreements between the parties that they agree on certain evidence, and that's what this is. Go ahead. So then she picks back up with 492 and 492A. And basically same information. Okay, let's see. And then they start talking about latitude and longitude coordinates that were present in the excerpted forensic analysis reports. Were you able to determine the corresponding locations? And then he said yes. And then Melendez says, Your Honor, the government moves to admit government's exhibit 961 into evidence. Canick, no objection. Donnelly, okay, this is in evidence. And then Melendez says, if we could publish, Your Honor. Then Donnelly, in other words, when you were pointing out all those coordinates, these are just the corresponding cities on those exhibits. Is that correct? And then he says the corresponding addresses. Addresses, right. Yes. Okay, thanks. And then back to Melendez. Okay, first, looking at this first column here, the government's exhibit 487A, there was a creation date of October 3rd, 2015, correct? Yes. And for example, with respect to this, that was based on the creation date listed in government's exhibit 487. Your analysis report, is that correct? Yes. The coordinates, latitude and longitude, were also based on the coordinates of where the iPhone 6 took the photograph that's listed in government's exhibit 487A, correct? Correct. And then there's a corresponding location, correct? Yes. Is the same process true for all of the exhibits listed in this first column here? Yes. So going through with respect to government's exhibit, Donnelly, I don't know if we have to go through all of them. Melendez, I won't. Donnelly, I think it's probably not necessary. Melendez, I won't. Melendez, with respect to government's exhibit 487A, the corresponding location for the coordinates of latitude and the longitude here are Oakland Convention Center, 550 10th Street, Oakland, California, 94607, correct? Yes. And going down the chart, each one of these locations corresponds to the latitude and longitude coordinates that were in the excerpted analysis report that we went through, correct? Yes. Canick, can I just get the exhibit number again? Melendez, 961. Canick, 961. Thank you. Melendez. Now, you testified previously with respect to photographs and images that were taken by an iPhone 6 Plus. Generally speaking, based on your experience, when text or photographs are taken on an iPhone, is it the local time where the iPhone is? For example, where the coordinates, latitude and longitude, the local time and date that is used, that appears on the text or the photograph that is defaulted with respect to an iPhone. So that was a very unclear question. I'm going to back up and I'm going to ask that question again. Donnelly, what do you have to say about how the dates appeared on the phone in any of these? That's not a very good question either, but I would rather have you tell it than me ask all the details. Okay, then the witness. It usually defaults to the time zone that the phone is physically in by default unless it's changed. Donnelly, I see. Cruz Melendez, nothing further. Donnelly, okay. Any cross-examination, Canick? Very briefly. Okay. Sir, I think you testified and told us this was a partial forensic. Donnelly, turn on your microphone. Canick, I think you testified and told us that this was a partial forensic analysis. Yes. What's a partial forensic analysis? So we image the device and then there's an electronic version of the analysis of that device using different analysis software. That digital report that we provide the case agent with is everything that was on the phone. So it will have text messages, it will have photos, it will have call logs, it will have notes, any kind of encrypted chats like WeChat or WhatsApp, Facebook messaging. So all that is presented to the agent in a digital report. And then they could go through it and just look at specific sections of it. so they could go through it and cherry pick the ones that they want. Getty's objection. Donnelly sustain. They could go through it and pick out the ones that they want. To print, yes. Thank you. Cruz Melendez, just brief clarification. So she's on redirect examination. Agent Wilson, when you analyze the exhibits that we have just gone through, you created a report of all the information that was on each one of those devices, correct? Correct, yes. And, oh my God, why does this thing keep jumping? And you provided that full report to the agents, correct? I did, yes. When we went through the partial results of the excerpted reports, those were portions of the full analysis report that you created, correct? Correct. Nothing further. Okay, anything else, Mr. Canick? Nothing. Just hold on for 1 second. I'm just trying to coordinate with when your lunch gets here so we can make the best of use of our time. Do you have another witness available? Geddes, we do, although it might be more productive if we broke for lunch. Donnelly, let's try to squeeze all we can out of the time that we have. Why don't you call your next witness? Okay, let me excuse you. This witness is excused. Thank you. The witness steps down. Okay, before we get to the next witness, that was a complete waste of time. What was on them images? Like, why we don't have a description of what those pictures were? And I mean, was it anything serious? Like what? Okay, I'm assuming by Canick saying that they cherry picked through the pictures, I guess to find the ones that were most salacious, that they were obviously pictures, I guess, of pictures that he took, maybe of some of his girlfriends or his women friends. And since some of the pictures had redactions, I'm going to assume that there was like a black bar that probably was covering the breast area and the, lower area. But was there anything criminal in the pictures? Because we ain't getting no questions asked. And we already know that he liked to take pictures of people, right? So, I mean, was there damning pictures? Since only the jury saw the picture, that means none of the reporters or anybody saw them. And nobody has reported that, oh my God, he had all these pictures of such and such on his phone. So was this anything serious? That's what I'm trying to find out. Like, is it helping them build their case? So anyway, the next witness... Well, hold on, you guys. I might stop here because we're already over an hour. Okay, we'll go ahead because the next witness is somebody named Mike Wilson. And Mike Wilson works as a special agent with Homeland Security Investigations. And he testified that he is a special agent. And so he was asked, and are you assigned to a particular unit within the Department of Homeland Security? Yes, I'm also certified as a computer forensics agent. How long have you been certified as a computer forensics agent? Full-time for 18 months, and then the last 2 years as a collateral duty. And do you have a relative who is also a computer forensic agent at the Department of Homeland Security? Yes, I do. Chris Wilson? Yes. How are you related? Yes, he's my cousin. What are your duties and responsibilities as a computer forensics agent at the Department of Homeland Security? And you guys, Chris Wilson was the guy that just testified. So they're cousins, him and Mike. To assist case agents with the proper seizure, proper evidence collection, and then the extraction and analysis of digital evidence. I want to direct your attention to July 11th of 2019. Did you participate in the execution of a search warrant on that date? Yes, I did. And was that in Chicago, Illinois? Yes. I'm showing the witness what's been marked for identification as Government's Exhibit 345. I'm going to show counsel first. All right. Do you recognize that? Yes. What is it? This phone was seized from the defendant's hands during the execution of the arrest warrant. And was the individual from whom it was seized Robert Kelly? Yes. Do you see him in the courtroom today? Yes. Can you point to him and describe an article of his clothing? Sitting at the far table wearing a blue jacket with a blue tie. Indicating the defendant. Okay, and after you receive the, I'm sorry, let me publish it, please. You may have already testified to this, but what is that, by the way? This is an iPhone, Apple iPhone. And after the Apple iPhone was seized from the defendant on July 11, 2019, what, if anything, did you do with it? At that time, it was processed to attempt to crack the password. All right, and were you ultimately present when the password was cracked? No, I wasn't. May I approach? Yes. I'm showing the witness what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 347. I'm going to show counsel too. Do you recognize Government's Exhibit 347? Yes. And did you conduct a forensic examination of Government's Exhibit 347? Yes, I did. The government offers Government's Exhibit 347. No objection. All right, that's in evidence. And just briefly, I'll hold it up. What is Government's Exhibit 347? It's an Apple iPad. Donnelly, where did you get that? Were you just about to ask that? Geddes, were you present when that was seized? Yes, I was. Where was that seized from? That was in the residence of the defendant. And was that residence located in Chicago, Illinois? Yes, it was. At 401 North Wabash Avenue in apartment 48F as in Frank? Yes. And is that building located at 401 North Wabash? Is that also known as the Trump Towers? Yes, it is. I'm showing the witness what's been marked for identification as 326, as well as 326A through J, 327, 328, 329, 336. Sorry. It's out of order. And 341 through 343. Canic, excuse me. Just let me get the exhibit numbers again. And then she repeats the exhibit numbers. Now, prior to your testimony today, did you have a chance to look at these exhibits? Yes, I did. Canic, Your Honor, I'm going to ask for a sidebar. Sure. Okay, sidebar conference held on the record out of the hearing of the jury. Donnelly, you know, their lunch is here right now, so maybe we'll break now and then you can tell me what the issue is. And then Mr. Scholar, sure. Donnelly, let me excuse them and we'll do it open court. Sidebar ends. So in open court, Donnelly, I'm told your lunches are here, so I think this is a good time to break. Please don't discuss the case at all and enjoy your lunch. We'll see you, let's say 2:30. Have a good lunch. All rise. And then the jury exit. Donnelly, okay, everybody can sit down and you can take the witness out. We'll see you after lunch. The witness steps down. Mr. Scholar, I'm just going to ask you to use the microphone so I can hear. I must confess, I don't know what the exhibits are we are about to see. Should I look at them? Geddes, do you want to do this as a sidebar? Scholar, yes, we should do it as a sidebar, please. Donnelly, all right. And then the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pages are redacted. So I guess they were discussing what was on those photos that I guess we'll never know what they were because the discussion was redacted out. And so then the court, they're back in session. She says, I think we will break for lunch now. We'll be back at 2:30. Let's see. And then afternoon session starts and then all rise. Everybody comes back in and have a seat. And then Canic, Your Honor, before you rule, might we be given an opportunity to brief it? Donnelly, well, Canic, I don't think anything is coming in today. Donnelly, nothing is coming in today. I will tell you what I am thinking about, just so I do not surprise anyone. So Canic says, sure. Donnelly, I think the first video is clearly relevant to come through the witness, Anna. So Anna was Holly. The second one, however, is cumulative. I think it is unfairly prejudicial and it is not related to anybody who is testifying, so I am excluding that. Do you still need to brief it, or do you want to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory? Canic, let me find out from Mr. Scholar which is the first and which is the second. Donnelly, okay, yes, speak to him about that. But the only caveat that is, as is the caveat with everything, is that there is some suggestion that I cannot imagine what it could be, but if there is some suggestion that it did not happen or some way that the door gets open, yes. But I think the evidence as it relates to the victim, the witness who is going to testify, is clearly relevant, not only to what her own experience was, but what the experience was of one of the other witnesses, specifically Jane, who testified. And I think it is fair to say that for a lot of people, including me, it is very difficult to imagine that people would engage in this kind of conduct, and so the evidence of it is relevant, and so that is my ruling. If you still want to brief it, you can. Canic, thank you, Your Honor. Donnelly, okay, all right, I guess you could brief it too, but Geddes, all right, I was planning to offer it now, though. I am not going to publish it. Donnelly, I do not think it should come into evidence, so I am. Geddes, no, I'm sorry. I was going to offer the one involving Anna. Donnelly, and you guys know Anna is Holly Calhoun. And so Donnelly, yes, it can be offered into evidence. It is not going to be played right now. Geddes, that's right. Donnelly, there is no problem with that, is there? Canic, I'm just thinking about it, Your Honor. Donnelly, turn on your Canic. Oh, Donnelly, because the witness is here now, so I don't think that there is any dispute that the evidence is on the defendant's computer. Canic, yes, I understand, Your Honor. I understand perfectly. Donnelly, all right. And so that part of it, the foundation has been established, though, or will be established through this witness. Canic, I was just a little confused because I didn't know who Anna was. Oh, I see. Do you know now? I know now, yes. Okay, I think we all are on the same page. Shall we get anything else before we get the witness? Then Nicole speaks up, who we haven't heard for in quite a while now. I'm sorry, Judge. Can we also brief the other issue with regards to the introduction of some of the videos that involved my understanding? Is this was talked about as sidebar as well, or no? Donnelly, that is what we were just talking about. Geddes, no, I think, Becker, not those videos, Judge. Geddes, there are additional videos that within that list that we seek to offer right now, which were not raised before Your Honor at the last sidebar. Donnelly, well, are those similar to what? They are not the same as Geddes. They're not the same. Donnelly, do they involve people who are testifying or conduct that is an issue? There is conduct that is an issue, and yes, people who are testifying well. Mr. Scholar? Yes, Judge. Can you get a microphone? Yes. Thanks so much. You can sit down if it is easier. Sure, Judge. Thank you, Judge. These are videos that the government wants to admit through this witness that may involve 3 people. Right? And there has been testimony about that. And I understand, Judge. I know you've ruled on that previously. However, was there an objection to it? There was an objection. I believe the government said they were going to play snippets. First, we wanted to know what snippets they're intending to play. Well, nobody is playing anything today. And then Geddes, that's right. Donnelly, and as I understand it, and I could really be wrong on this because there were a number of motions in limine I don't recall any specific motions in limine about video evidence, and correct me if I am wrong about that. I just do not recall that there was a motion to preclude anything, so I am a little bit in the dark about some of the things that we are talking about. What I would suggest is, as I said with respect to that other evidence, this is a foundational witness who you probably could have stipulated to that he recovered this laptop or whatever it is, and I do not think there is any real dispute that this stuff is on there. So the question is, which of it comes into evidence? I have made my ruling, so you can try to persuade me that I am wrong about the one that we talked about at the side. There is no application before me on the other ones unless you are making one now. Judge, we would make one now with respect to the, and then Donnelly cuts him off, but I do not know what you are asking because I would need to identify what the videos are and to whom they relate. There was clearly been testimony by multiple witnesses that one of the features of their time with the defendant was that he was taping things on a pretty constant basis, and so they are clearly relevant to that testimony. But again, I am just speaking generally here because of what has been represented to me. This isn't something that anybody litigated before. So the witnesses here, I am trying to move the trial along a bit. My suggestion is that he can testify to what is on there, and then we can have a conversation about which of the videos comes in. But I would have been happier to have this conversation before now. Understood, Judge. So, why don't we proceed that way? Nobody is playing anything today, as far as I understand, and so I think, why don't we finish the witness? Who comes after this, by the way? We have a witness who is en route, and I believe she will be next. Her name is Alexis. Okay, also, but no videos related to Alexis, correct? No videos related to Alexis. I just want to know from the government. They said she is en route. Is she on the ground? Okay, yes. Okay, so this is Geddes and Canick going back and forth. And then Donnelly said, she is on the Bronx River Parkway, kidding. All right, shall we get the witness? Geddes, yes. Just to be clear, my team has corrected me. There are videos, but not that type of video. Donnelly, okay, all right, go ahead. The witness enters the courtroom. Donnelly, can you have a seat until we get the jury? And then I'll rise. You may be seated. Welcome back. We are all ready to proceed with the direct examination of the witness. Geddes, thank you. The clerk, the witness is reminded he is still under oath. And we are still talking to Mike Wilson here, who got these videos off of the iPad. So, all right, before we broke for lunch, I had showed you a series of exhibits. Do you recall those exhibits? Yes. And do those exhibits reflect partial examination reports from your forensic examination of Government Exhibit 345, which was that iPad that was introduced into evidence earlier today? Yes, it does. At this time, the government offer, one moment, and I'm showing the witness what's been marked for identification as 327A, 327B. This is already in evidence. Do you recognize 327A and B? Yes, I do. And are those your initials there? Yes. And have you had the opportunity to review 327A and B? Yes, I have. And are those videos that were recovered on Government Exhibit 347? Yes, Miss Geddes. And now I am showing just the witness what's been marked for identification as 328A, 330A, 342A, 329A, 341A, and 343A. Do you recognize that? Yes. And is that a CD containing videos as well? Yes, it is. And were those videos also recovered from the iPad, which is in evidence as Government Exhibit 347? Yes, that was recovered from the defendant's residence. Correct. And are these your initials listed here? Yes. And then at this time, the government offers, and then she names all the exhibits. Donnelly, subject to the discussion that we had before, those are admissible. And then Canick, thank you, Your Honor. Donnelly, thank you. Geddes, I am going to provide. May I approach, Your Honor? Yes. I'm going to provide the witness Government Exhibit 326. And may I publish to the jury only? This is 326A, B, and C. Did you recognize the photos shown in 326A through 326C? Yes. And are those photographs that were found on the defendant on the iPad that was seized from the defendant's residence in evidence as Government Exhibit 347? Yes, they were. And if you, referring to what's in front of you, Government Exhibit 326, I want to direct your attention to image 1914. Do you see that? Yes. And I believe that corresponds to what's shown as 326A. Is that correct? Yes, it does. And are you able to see from looking at 326 when that particular photograph was taken? Yes, I can. When was it taken? January 14th of 2018. And are you able to determine with what it was taken? Yes. What device? Yes, it was taken from an Apple iPad Pro. And are there a series of photographs of that individual in the same attire that were also taken on January 14th of 2018? And specifically directing your attention to image 1915, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Yes. And were each of those images also photographs taken on January 14th of 2018? Yes. And were taken using that same device that you just identified, the iPad Pro? Yes, they were. And I just referred to a series of images. Is that just, I said image, I think, and then it's listed as image 1915. Is that just the file name that a particular photograph was saved as? Yes, that's the default naming convention of Apple products. And now, I want to direct your attention to what's identified in Government Exhibit 326 or what's listed in Government Exhibit 326 as image 2026 and 2025. Can you take a look at those? Yes. And I'm showing again to the jury only what's in evidence as 326I and 326J. Are those photographs reflected in image 2026 and image 2025? Yes, they are. And are you able to determine from reviewing Government Exhibit 326 when those two photographs were taken? February 3rd, 2018. And are you able to determine what device was used to take those two photographs? Yes, Apple iPad Pro. And is that also the same device that was listed for the photographs you just testified about a moment ago? Yes. And I am going to take back 326 for a moment from you. And I am now showing what's in evidence as Government's Exhibit 327. And this can be shown to everyone. And this right here is page 4 of Government Exhibit. Oh, I'm sorry. It can't be shown to everyone. I apologize, Your Honor. Can I just show it to the jury only? Sure. All right, I'm showing the jury only what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 327. Can you just briefly describe what is shown where my pen is, what's reflected there, just generally speaking? That's usually what happens, is it's showing a video, and those are thumbnails from the video showing segments of it. All right, and that particular file is identified by file name img1930.mov. Is that correct? Yes, it is. And was that one of the videos featured on Government Exhibit 327AB, that CD that you reviewed previously? Yes, it is. And from looking at Government's Exhibit 327, are you able to determine on what day that video was created? Yes, January 14th, 2018. And are you able to determine what device was used to create that video? Yes, with the Apple iPad Pro. And now I want to direct your attention to Donnelly. Could I just see the parties at the side for a minute, just with the court reporter? Sidebar conference held on the record out of the hearing of the jury. Donnelly, I just want to clarify, are these thumbnails some of the videos? They're not. Gettys, no. So what I'm going to, these two videos are in evidence from yesterday, what we played yesterday. I'm not going to show the thumbnails for the videos in question. I'm only going to establish the date that they were made. That's it. Okay, do you object to counsel during that sort of a group? All. Not at all. And that's Canic. Donnelly, okay, rather than going through each one, it is riveting. Gettys, I understand it is riveting. Donnelly, if there is a way to do it, if they do not object to the dates, it might move things along if your witness needs more time to get there. Getty, she literally just walked in. Donnelly, we will just take a little break, but it seems to me there is not a whole lot of dispute about where these came from or what the dates are. And so if we just want to say, I think it is fine to say, do them as a group. Yes, they're listed a little bit differently, but I still do my best to move it along. Yes, I just think if nobody is disrupting it, there is no reason to. Canic, I'm not disputing it. Scholar is not disputing it. Donnelly, just in terms of that sort of basic foundation also. Gettys, yes. Donnelly, okay. So Gettys continues. And you have testified about the creation date of several photographs and now 2 videos. And on the examination reports that you have you seen both a create one field that says creation date time and then below that a created date time? Yes. And is the created date time the date on which the photograph or video was taken by a particular device? Yes. And and that is located as I just want to make sure that I have not misspoken. All right, just looking at Government's Exhibit 327 again, where my finger is pointed, there is something at the top that says created date time. And then it goes on to say U2C. And then there's another created date time local. Is it the created date time local? That is the date on which the video or photograph was taken. Yes, it is. Okay, and at least as with respect to this video, where the created date time that is above that, is that the date on which this report was created? Yes, it is. Not the date when the photograph itself or video itself was taken, correct? That's correct. Okay, nothing further. Donnelly, okay, any cross-examination? Canic, no, none. Donnelly, okay, thank you so much. You can step down. Donnelly, now, do we need a few minutes to then Gettys cuts her off? Maybe just a 5-minute break, Your Honor. Donnelly, it is never really 5. I think we will make it 10 minutes just because of the weather. We have had a little difficulty getting some of the people here, so I just want to make sure everything is in place. So 10 minutes. Please do not talk about the case. And then all rise. The people leave the courtroom. The jury leaves the courtroom. Donnelly, okay. Everybody can sit down, and unless anybody has anything they want to discuss, we are in recess for a little bit. All right? Do you really think 5 minutes? Yes. Okay. Let's get everybody out here. Thank you. Do we have everyone? Are we missing anybody? That's what I thought. Do you know where she is? Farinelli. She is nearby. I think she went to the bathroom, Your Honor. Okay, thanks. She is just not here right now, but we will be back soon, right? Great. Okay. Why don't we get the witness and then we will move on from there. Okay, so I'm going to pause there. Now I'm thinking there really is nothing serious on these videos. Now I can't understand why Mr. Kelly would have still had these videos on an iPad, considering everything that was taking place with the arrest by Cook County, with the arrest with the child support, with the release of SRK, knowing that these people were coming for him. Why would there have been an iPad laying around in the condo with any type of videos on it? And so I will go back to Ariel Clary, that this is something that she got her hands on, and they said that all these videos were from prior years, from 2015 to 2018, but then all of a sudden they miraculously were copied onto this device, right? Like on December or something. So it sounds to me like this might be an iPad that was planted by Ariel Clary under the direction of her daddy. And now I'm going to stick with that, okay? Because I just cannot believe that Steve Greenberg didn't tell this man, if you got any devices, you better burn them suckers. If you got any cloud accounts, you better delete everything, wipe them clean, get one of them programs that help you scrub the internet of all this nonsense. Because I just cannot believe that anybody would be this crazy to still have devices laying around that would have evidence to what it is that these people are coming at you for. So, okay, we're going to continue, because now, actually, I'm going to end this video here, because this was like all technical stuff, and then we'll start up with our next video with Alexis on the stand. So that's it for me for now. Go ahead, leave your comments below, rate the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And until the next time, I shall talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.